So this is a really cool way to conceptualize breathing. It's a much more accurate way to conceptualize the activity of breathing, so that your effort in that regard is like way more effective. The shift in frame here is similar to like imagine a toddler looking at a complex situation and the toddler's like looking at like what's going on, and I don't know, what would the situation be? I don't know. You try and come up with a metaphor or an analogy and post in the comment below. So there's a lot of focus on breathing in, breathing out, focusing on the nostrils, etc. And what the breath is actually doing is that your lungs, they have a particular charge to them. Your lung surface is charged based off of the connection that it has to the air around it, and then also based off of the air content in it. So the ratios of oxygen to carbon dioxide and all the other stuff in the air, the barometric pressure, all of that basically determines the shape and the quality of an electrode, or sort of a magnet, that your blood is moving by. So you could see it as like you're kind of using that electricity of the air around you to more or less like scrub your blood or charge the blood. Like, right, the lungs are basically charging the blood. So if you look at it and you go, I want to get a sense of that charging, you're looking for it in the area of the chest. And if you slow the breathing way down, the charge in the lungs becomes very great. And that's like a lot of the suffering is like, what are you trying to do when you breathe in? If you can't breathe, you're trying to change the charge in the lungs. Like you're changing the electromagnetic nature of the space where the blood is contacting reality, right? So that space where your blood is coming up and meeting this world right here, it does so through the breath. That's where all of the electricity from this realm comes and goes into the blood. And so what would you call something where energy is flowing from one thing to another? That's called an electrode. Like, where does the energy flow out of a battery? At the electrode, right? There's like a point, and then all the energy in the battery flows from the battery into the device. So that point on the body is the lung surface. And so all of the energy coming from everything is coming from this electrode right here, and the blood is moving by it, conveyor belt style, and as it moves by it, it alters or changes the charge of the blood. So the blood has this charge, it goes by, and then this world, the electricity from this world, changes the blood charge, and so you see that as resaturated. So forget about all the stuff that you normally do to modulate that charge, right? Okay, the charge is one way, you reflexively breathe faster or whatever. So forget that and just look at the charge, and you'll be like, okay, I want to shift the charge. I want to shift the charge of the lung surface, and look at what it does when you don't breathe. Right? Just hold your breath, do a Wim Hof round or something like that, hyperventilate, and then just, you'll notice the charge of the blood will start to change. It'll pull something under tension. That pulling it under tension, it'll want to, that desire, once something's pulled under tension, its desire to return to equilibrium state, that's you'll experience that as desire, and if you resist that, you'll start to experience that as suffering. But oh well, right? So just you change the charge, and it takes several minutes for all of the blood to go by, right? It takes several minutes for all the blood in the body to cycle by. So if you hold a particular charge for long enough, 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, then all the blood goes by the lungs, and the charge is just, it's different, right? You can see that as the blood's not like resaturating. So if you don't resaturate the blood continues on with the same charge that it had when it came in. So you're not altering. A lot of times the blood will be depleted, it goes by the lungs, and then you shift the charge. And so if the blood's going by and you go, I'm not going to change this blood. Like, how do you breathe to where you go, I'm going to stop interfering with my blood? So what you're trying to do is to get rid of this oscillation where where the blood's desaturated, then the blood's saturated, then the blood's desaturated, the blood's saturated. And so you let the blood desaturate to like 93%, just let it desaturate a little bit, or go nuts, let it desaturate down to 75, 50. And as the blood goes by and you don't molest it, basically, that has beneficial health effects, because the blood goes by with a memory of what it was, and you start to understand, or so you start to be able to perceive things in the body. So the reason that meditation or stillness or silence causes an increase in wisdom, an increase in body awareness, an increase of everything else, is because the blood's going by and it's being allowed to remain what it is, and so you get a memory of cycles. You get a memory of cycling and cycling and cycling. People intuitively accomplish this with exercise. This is just what you have to figure out a way to do this to even be remotely healthy or not like an NPC. You have to have a memory of cycles. So a lot of people do this with exercise. It's baseline fitness. And people that are more fit have memories of deeper cycles. Right? Really, really deep cycles is going to be like a memory of a past life, or like just larger and larger context. If you have no memory of cycles, like if your blood's never, if you're like the desaturated, when the blood comes by and it's desaturated, that means that it did something. That means that you did something. Something happened, like you drew the prana or the chi out of the body. If you're not desaturating at all and you're just sitting there on the couch just at like 99, 100% all day, every day, never dipping, the blood has no memory of ever doing anything. So this causes a rapid bloating and deconditioning and increased sensitivity to everything. Like everything becomes unhealthy, everything becomes inflammatory. Because the body has no memory of there's no fluidic memory of anything. So it's just like everything starts to become like the first time you've ever done anything, and you're not even really trying any hard because you've forgotten how. That starts to happen at like a metabolic level, and people call that diabetes. So if you do something, right? If you do something, by doing something, that could be jogging, but it could also be like just be what you are. But if you actually do that, if you actually do the stillness practices, you'll be so still that the blood will start to desaturate the exact same way that it would desaturate if you were doing sprints, right? So this is the difference between a relatively accomplished meditator and like an exerciser, of somebody who can do, like you look at a track athlete, or you look at a Tour de France champion, right? They're capable of doing this crazy stuff with their blood, right? But a meditator, yogi, the internals, does the same thing with their blood without moving. And so then all the exercise becomes like extremely psychotic once you realize why you're doing the exercise. And so that's the steps on the spiritual path or whatever, is when you figure out like, why are you doing the exercise? And that's everything from like praying to jogging to breathing. So if you're just doing it, that'll desaturate, and you can desaturate down to whatever. The deeper the desaturation, obviously, the more you did with that breath cycle. Right? So as you slow down the breathing and the blood is given a chance to desaturate, that's the only indication that you have that you really did something with that cycle of breath. The blood went out and the oxygen was drawn out of it because your will was involved. You were there, you were doing something, you were using it. So it comes back to the heart desaturated, in need of oxygen. So then at that point, then you can be like, I'm not going to change this blood. You don't let it fall down to where you're like, you're desaturating to the point of death. But let's say the blood comes in at 75 and you just keep it right at 75. I'm not gonna alter this situation. And that requires a lot of doing in a certain way. But if you don't alter the situation, then the blood goes back out with the effects of the previous cycle. And so then you get memory and skill accumulation and context understanding, which is what people call wisdom. And the blood is more charged as well. Like it actually, when the hemoglobin desaturates, it actually changes the charge. It reverses the polarity of the blood. So it's electrically attached to kind of a different world. Right? Like imagine you had a magnet floating on the surface of water, and when the charge is positive, it's attracted this way, and when the charge is negative, it's attracted that way. So you can be at the surface, your blood is this magnet where it's like, if it's not desaturated, it's attracted to this way. And then if you start to desaturate, the magnetism reverses, and the blood's it's actually magnetically connected to a different reality. So as your blood moves through the circulation system, depending on its charge, it's actually connected to or geared into different realities, different parallel realities. So a person can be in one place, and because their blood is of a different charge, they're genuinely mechanically experiencing a totally different world. And like the idea of this is cool, but the reality of it is like pretty intense, scary. On par with, or dare I say, identical to going out into the ocean. Or going into the wilderness. Going to the top of a very tall mountain. All these places that like really change you or whatever is a little scary. And if you're not scared, you're not there. And if you're really deconditioned, it's really, really scary to go out there. Right? Like if you're physically deconditioned, your ability to go inward into your body is identical to your ability to go into the wilderness or to go into the ocean. And so people who can't swim very well, you can't go into the ocean to experience any of these wave phenomenon without it like instantly being a threat to your very existence. The same thing with like wilderness exploration. It like requires a certain type of understanding and physicality. And like you can have these old men or these old people that are capable of surviving in the wilderness. It's not just because they're just like but it's like people that are disabled. If you're physically disabled, you're spiritually disabled. And there's more to the world than this. I'm not saying anything objectively like, oh, if you can't do this, you're spiritual and you're going to go to not heaven or what. No, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just there's not two different realities, right? So it's like the way we are in one is the way we are in another, and then there's, you know, it's like it right, you find deeper context and you'll find that every trough is a peak somewhere else or right nearby, right? But it's like it is what it is, like what it really is, like what the world really is. If you like contemplate it, if you really get it, is it's scary to think. It's intense to think about. It's intense to even to hold the correct view of reality, the one that's not some artificially contrived thing, is as mentally intense as being in the ocean or as being in the wilderness mentally. And so that's why people that get a correct view of reality, they start to understand it. Everyone goes, oh, you're crazy, you're schizophrenic. And so it's that hard. It's actually that hard. If it's not that hard for you, you're not doing it. You're just looking at a picture of it. Like if your spiritual practice is just going to the beach and meditating with a group before you surf, you're not. It's just not in it. The surfing is it. The surfing is definitely it. But a lot of people will have no struggle with their heart, with their mind, with their beliefs or anything like that. They'll not take themselves to that dangerous place that you're willing to go in the ocean and survive the onslaught of the waves and not only survive it, but learn to ride it and to go out there recreationally. In this way that if you look at the population statistics, like what if 50, 60, 75% of people overweight or like morbidly obese, they would not be able to surf, right? And so that same thing is happening on all the different levels. But yeah, you're just take control over your blood. Or not, don't take control over it, stop changing it. Take control over how you're altering the blood. You stop interfering with the blood and let it accumulate wisdom. And your blood will see the solution or the context to things. So if you sit there if you don't mess with the blood for at all for a couple minutes, you'll start to see that your will, that you are present and you are here, your blood oxygen will start to desaturate. Somebody was there using up all that energy. and it was you. And you'll find that it's all of your perceptions, all of your thoughts, everything is like is doing. Even in your most passive state, like there's so much doing. And then you can don't change that doing, so the blood will desaturate, and then stop. Let it keep it alive, like keep the doing alive. Breathe a little bit, or breathe at whatever rate you have to keep it between 70 and 80, or between 80 and 90. Don't totally erase the activity of the blood from the last cycle. Pay attention to it. Don't erase it. Right? The oxygen in the air is a fire that you're burning the consequences of your activity up. Right? So the breath is death, right? Everything needs to die or to come alive. Like the breath is actually death. And so as you breathe, you're killing yourself. So it's like a better way to conceptualize the breath is that it's look at it for what it is. It's death. So if you're seeking life, it's like you have to at very least detach somewhat from your relationship with death. Not by killing the death, but by bringing it to life.